Good afternoon. Welcome to the CSA and ASPO Meet the Candidates event. We so appreciate you being here in attendance. We appreciate those that are also joining us via webinar wherever they may be located. We currently have 65 folks joining us via webinar and almost a full seat here. We had 95 seat reservations, so we hope a little bit more come so we can fill in these seats. But we had 95 folks sign up for the in-person attendance at this meeting. So we thank you so much for being here. I'd like to take a moment to thank the board candidates that are in front of you. Just to see the interest in their interest in serving the community is spectacular, so we appreciate all of them being here today as well. Before we begin, I'd like to run over a few housekeeping items. If you're joining us in person, just be aware of the emergency exits and where their locations are. The bathrooms are located to the back of the room. And if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment right now to please silence your cell phones so we make sure the presenters and the candidates don't get interrupted. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be very helpful. You can see the agenda behind me on the screen for the meeting. We've gone over the welcome and the housekeeping items, and this meeting is being webinared and recorded, so we are asking the presenters and the candidates to speak directly into the microphone so all can be heard, so it's captured well on the audio as well. You can see your board candidates in front of you. They are seated in alphabetical order. This is a mix of both CSA and ASPO candidates. Each board candidate will have a 3-minute time to complete their introductions. They will be randomly selected. After each of those candidates makes that completion of their introductory remarks, we will move then to a 6-minute topic of choice that each candidate will speak on. Again, they've already been randomly selected. Our timekeeper up front, Jean, if you want to give us a wave. Jean McElroy is our communications coordinator, so she'll be helping us with time. The timekeeper will flag when there's 1 minute remaining. That is a yellow pad there, and then she will also flag when there is 0 time remaining. We will, as the moderator, I will ask the candidate to stop speaking as that is shown so we can keep to the 3-minute and 6-minute markers. Questions to the board candidates from the community were previously collected, and the candidates have gone through diligently responding to those Q&As. Those have been posted on our website in addition to their biographies, and their intent of why they wish to serve the community are also posted. That information can be found on our website, cpinesliving.com. For CSA candidates, it's cpinesliving.com/CSA candidates. For ASPO, cpinesliving.com/ASPO candidates. Since the questions have already been addressed from the candidates, we will not be taking questions from the floor from the meeting, but the candidates may remain afterwards if you'd like to ask them individual questions, but the activities will not be part of the videotaped or made part of the actual event itself, so that can be done afterwards, independent with each of the candidates. Like I mentioned a bit ago, the event will be videotaped, and staff will work diligently to get that out to you guys so you can go back and look at it after you leave the meeting, or if you didn't have a chance to watch it in real time. At this point, we will begin with candidate introductions. Again, that's a 3-minute mark. Our first randomly selected candidate is Mr. David Ellis. David Ellis is running for both the CSA and ASPO Board of Directors. David, please join us at the podium. David? He is?
When are we ready to begin the time? Now, okay, I'm gonna do mine at the same time. I wanted the 15-second and the 30-second mark. I'm gonna tell you some very uninteresting information. It's about me. I've always found I'm rather uninteresting. I was born and raised and lived for 65 years in Vicksburg, Mississippi, except for 4 years at the University of Notre Dame and 3 years at the University of Chicago Law School. I met a Chicago girl, married her, and we've been married for 55 years. We have 4 children, 7 grandchildren. And after law school, I chose to return to Mississippi rather than intending to practice with the large firms, which was typical of the places where I went to school. It was the 1960s, and major transformations in the society were taking place then, and I wanted to be a part of that transformation and to participate. I've always been deeply involved in whatever community I lived in at the particular time. When I was at Notre Dame, I was in student government, and I was student body president. Then During my business and legal career, I joined every service organization we had in the Junior Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce. We had an organization that recruited industries from up north and tried to bring them south for low rates and low labor cost, et cetera. I was so successful in that I got the Volunteer of the State Award one year for the number of industries that I helped locate in our county. I served on the boards and was president of all of those types of organizations. I even took a low-paying job as attorney, part-time attorney for our city, so I can be involved in the governance of our city on questions of taxation, paving roads, raising revenues. So all of these, I spent 12 years involved in that in a municipality. On the business side, I served on the board of a national bank for 17 years. On the academic side, I served on the board of governors of St. John's College. I have been on the Notre Dame Law School Council for 27 years, and I'm currently in my 4th and final year as president of Sea Pines Country Club. My main career was a country lawyer, and I'll explain that later. But I have extensive experience in serving with community organizations, from the list I've just told you and others. Past accomplishments are one thing, but the test is, does that past person still exist now? So all I'm going to ask you to do is to look at Sea Pines Country Club and what's been going on there the last 4 years. Talk to members if you're not a member, and take whatever they say. If they like it, fine. If they don't like it, fine. But that's how you can tell whether the guy that was there for years ago is still there now. Thank you.
Thank you, David Ellis. Our next randomly selected candidate to approach the podium is Grover Todd. Grover is running for the ASPO Board of Directors. Grover?
Thank you guys for coming out. It's always amazing to me that people actually come to these things. And as beautiful as Sea Pines is, and as beautiful as the weather is in October. I'm Grover Todd. Grew up in James Island, which is Charleston, South Carolina. High school, my father got transferred to Greenville, South Carolina. So since 1975, resided in Greenville from that point on. Went on to TCU, Texas Christian University. One important thing that happened in my life, I had been in church all my life. My parents were Baptists and they drug us to church 3 times a week. But I actually became a Christian the summer before my college year. And a lot of things changed in my life. All of a sudden I had inner conviction instead of what was just fun tomorrow to do. And so that stuck with me, and that's a lot of what I am and a lot of my motivation and what I do. But spent 4 years in college, got a degree, came back to Greenville, worked a job until my father decided he was CEO of a consumer finance organization. He decided to break out on his own. And so he opened a business, and I spent 11 years with him, which he retired. Once he retired, we had built that company. We had 89 branch offices in 4 states. Once he retired, the new owners put me in as CEO, and I spent 5 years there. I had a 3-year non-compete, but I spent 5. And then left and formed my own company in 2002. And from 2002 through 2016, we grew it to 166 offices in 5 states. A lot of that wasn't me. I was the only owner, but we had a great team. It required a lot of common sense, required a lot of drive, required knowing a little bit about a lot of stuff to be able to manage people doing their jobs as that thing got bigger and bigger. But it was fun. It's fun when things work. Retired after I sold out to private equity. I was lucky to get that offer, and chose to move here. And so my wife and I now spend most of our time here. We still have our home in Greenville also. Married, have 2 children, 30 and 26, and 2 grandkids. They were all here this past week. We had a wonderful time here. So very much enjoyed that. Hopefully I hadn't forgotten anything, but that's pretty much who I am. Thanks.
Thank you, Grover. Our next randomly selected candidate is Bob Quinn. Mr. Quinn, if you can approach the podium. Mr. Quinn is running for the CSA Board of Directors. Bob.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks everybody for coming. As you know, my name is Bob Quinn. I'm running for the CSA board. I am a 43-year part-time property owner here in Sea Pines, having bought in 1976 with my wife Phyllis, who's in the back, and actually along with my son, who contributed $1 towards the purchase. I was fortunate to have spent summers on Long Island when I was growing up. And my father said we should have bought instead of rented. So I took his advice and bought here. When I changed jobs and Phyllis went back to work, instead of spending money on luxury vacations and expensive cars, I bought down here again for the future, because we didn't know, obviously then, how well we were going to do, how well our kids were going to do. And by buying here, we had something that was always available to us, our children, and eventually our grandchildren. So it's been such a success that I had 9 kids down here this summer between 10 and 15. My 5 grandchildren, my nephew, and his 4 kids. Don't worry, we were in 3 different villas. So we weren't all crowded in my 2-bedroom. We're now retired and spend more than 5 months a year here, about the same in New Jersey, with the rest devoted to visiting our children in Vermont and Virginia and friends and traveling. The answer to what attracted us here, besides the low country, is I'll go back to a quote attributed to Sam Smith. There are plenty of nice places to live, go to the beach, play golf or tennis, but none do it as well as Sea Pines. I really believe that. Sea Pines was recognized then under Fraser and now under Riverstone as a first-class residential resort recreational community. And this was widely recognized by Golf Magazine, Condé Nast. Golf Magazine recently rated us number 5 overall excellence. Our stature is not insured unless we continue to invest in the future. We have it pretty good, so let's keep it that way. As far as my bio, my relevant AXP experience includes change management, development of formal integrated business plans, capital plans, operating budgets, annual and quarterly reports to stockholders in the SEC, financial representative of the Corporate Real Estate Committee. The nominating committee wanted to know what kind of boards I was on. I was co-chair of the New Jersey State Society of CPA Litigation Services Committee, the board and membership chair of the New Jersey Turnaround Management Association. I've been published by the Management Consulting Division of the American Institute of CPAs. I was a finance and pension chair of St. Joseph's Regional Medical Center, a large inner city hospital and trauma center. As far as community centers, I'm going to go slight bit over if you don't mind, just 30 seconds maybe.
Thank you for your comments. Time has elapsed. Yes. That was Mr. Bob Quinn running for the CSA Board of Directors. Thank you, Bob. The next candidate up is Dana Gazzo. Dana is running for the ASPO Board of Directors. Dana, if you can approach the podium.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Guazzo. My husband Frank and I were married 30 years ago, and we are blessed with 2 daughters who are both married and live in San Diego. Our daughter Regina is a biological oceanographer. She works for the U.S. Navy, researching the impact of naval operations on whale behavior. Our daughter Julia is a social worker employed by a nonprofit organization assisting those struggling with chronic homelessness. Both our sons-in-law are lieutenants in the U.S. Navy. Brian is an explosive ordnance disposal officer. Eli is a helicopter pilot and a Marine Corps vet. Frank and I relocated to Sea Pines in 2015. Prior to that, we lived in New Jersey. Frank worked as a pharmaceutical chemist, retiring from Merck & Company after 39 years. My career also spanned 4 decades. I earned a bachelor's degree in pharmacy from the University of Kentucky, followed by master's and doctorate degrees from Rutgers University in the field of pharmaceutical sciences. For the first half of my career, I worked as a research scientist for the pharmaceutical firms Warner Lambert, Schering-Plough, and Johnson & Johnson. Then in the year 2000, I launched out as an independent consultant, eventually boasting a clientele of over 50 pharmaceutical and medical device firms scattered throughout the US, Europe, and Japan. I became widely known as an expert in pharmaceutical product packaging. For example, syringes, auto-injectors, vials, intravenous solution bags. I served the United States Pharmacopoeia as an expert committee volunteer for 19 years. And I was a career-long volunteer and instructor for the Parenteral Drug Association. As a global advocate for higher product quality standards, I authored numerous scientific publications. I'm also a co-inventor for a patent on a novel approach for detecting leaks in packagings. Here in Hilton Head, our lives have proven to be no less fulfilling. I love to create art, and I sing in the Mary Green Chorale. Frank and I are members of All Saints Episcopal Church. We volunteer for Family Promise of Beaufort County, assisting families who are newly homeless get back on their feet. I also volunteer for the Arts Center of Coastal Carolina, traveling to Beaufort County elementary schools as a visiting artist and scientist. Finally, I have served Sea Pines for the last 2 years by championing the creation of the joint ASPO-CSA Land Use Management Committee, of which I'm an active member. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. Our next candidate will be David Pardue. Mr. Pardue is running for the CSA Board of Directors. David, if you could join us at the podium.
Thank you. Good afternoon, friends. Get this up a little bit. Becky and I started visiting Sea Pines in 1974 and just immediately fell in love with it. We loved the whole ambience, the Charles Fraser's idea, the friends we met here, and we knew from the first that we eventually wanted to make it our home. In 1991, we were fortunate enough to buy our first home here, and we still are in that same place. We originally meant to be just a vacation home, but we met so many wonderful friends here that by 1995, we were full-time and we're still living in that residence. It's now our only residence, and we're both from Burlington, North Carolina, have 2 adult kids and 3 grandchildren. My community involvement with Sea Pines, I was on the Sea Pines Associates Board for about 2.5 years in 2003 and 2004, and I was part of the team that negotiated the sale of the company to the Riverstone Company and to Bill Goodwin, and I'm particularly proud of that because it's been a fantastic for our community, much better than had we continued under the old Sea Pines Associates deal. I've also served as co-chair of a fundraising campaign for the Arts Center. I've been on the board of directors for 2 years of the Hilton Head Hilton Orchestra. Becky and I, mainly Becky, started our Property Owners Association, the Beach Lagoon Property Owners Association, in 2006, and that's been a terrific thing for our neighborhood. I've been president for the last 2 years, and one of the things that we've been able to do is to expand and include a lot of part-time neighbors. That's really been probably the best thing that we've done with the POA, is get a lot of the part-time neighbors involved in the community. You know, a lot of the part-timers here don't really feel a big part of the community, but if you can get them involved, then they tend to be better neighbors. They take better care of their lawns. It's just just a terrific thing. My business career, I'm 72 years old, but I still work all the time. I'm involved in a specialty area of real estate finance where I finance large corporate real estate properties for major companies all over the country. I have no business involvement in anywhere around Hilton Head. My only involvement here is as a homeowner. But I currently have real estate finance projects going on in North Carolina, Texas, Wisconsin, and Southern California. And just yesterday, I was awarded another project that we're doing in Iowa. So that's my business career. I've done a lot of volunteer work for the University of North Carolina. And with that, I was a trustee for 8 years and chairman of a committee that arranged and planned for the growth of 6,000 students at the University of North Carolina. It was constant negotiations with the town, with the administration, with the legislature. I'll tell you about it later.
Thank you for your comments. That was David Pardue running for the CSA Board of Directors. Our next candidate will be Diedrich Avocott. Diedrich, if you can join us at the podium. Diedrich is running for the CSA Board of Directors. Diedrich.
Well, I feel a little bit like the cat that ate the canary. I am very fortunate to live here in Sea Pines. I think it's one of the most beautiful places to be in this community. And with my career, I also feel that I can add significant value to some of the changes that need to take place in Sea Pines. So it's an honor to be standing in front of you today. And I am running as an independent candidate, as a full-time resident and homeowner with no affiliation to resort or commercial business or a homeowners association, and no intentions to have an affiliation down the road. So I'd like to remain independent as such. I visited Sea Pines with my wife since 1980. My wife Dana sits over here. And it's really been our favorite vacation spots for us for all those years, and also for our two sons, William and Alexander. In 2012, after 16 years in living in London, we returned to the US and we bought a home in Sea Pines and settled as full-time resident. My career has been mostly in banking and corporate finance, working with ABN AMRO Bank in New York and in the Netherlands, Generale Bank, a Belgian bank, and I ran 2 KPMG offices for the US in London and Holland. I have worked with and for private equity firms. I've been involved in the hospitality hotel sector. I know a fair bit about it to understand those challenges. I'm still working with 2 kids in college, or 1 just out of college. And I'm working as the senior advisor to the World Bank, where I'm a facilitator at the moment to restructure financing of an airport that was hit by Hurricane Irma. And in that capacity, I bring different parties to the table to come to solutions, and mostly through compromise. So I'm asking for your vote. I'm thrilled to start this and hope to bring new ideas and new inspiration to our Sea Pines community. And I'll tell you all about that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Diedrich. Again, Diedrich is running for the CSA Board of Directors. Our last candidate will be Dave Borghese. Dave Borghese is running for the CSA Board of Directors. Dave, if you can join us at the podium, please.
Thank you, and hello, and thank you for all of you to join us on such a wonderful day in paradise, and for all of those who are joining us electronically. Nancy and I have been property owners since 1992, but started visiting here in the mid-70s. And I became a full-time resident upon my retirement from professional, and that would be paid work, in 2009. Our house is in the Club Course area. We have no ownership or management interests in either businesses or rental properties within Sea Pines or Hilton Head. Prior to my retirement, I spent 32 years with an international accounting and auditing firm, and about 7 years as a founding managing director of a consulting firm. My area of practice in both those organizations was in what is called forensic accounting, having analyzed financial matters, determined economic damages, and when we couldn't get to a negotiated agreement, actually had to testify in court as an expert witness. I have previously served on the CSA board as a member and treasurer for 6 years, ending December 2018. Therefore, many of you know who I am and what I stand for. During those 6 years, I am particularly proud of several accomplishments. First being changing the status of CSA from a tax-paying corporation to a nonprofit quasi-governmental agency. Also initiated the implementation of cash flow projections to better utilize our assessment monies that come in early but get spent over the course of the year, thereby being able to invest those funds and get a return on our assets in an appropriate and judicial way. I believe I developed understandable financial statements, which included supplemental information and management discussion and analysis to better explain year-end results. I participated in the search for a new president and opted for Brett Martin, which I think was probably the best thing we could possibly have done for this community. Regarding the unsuccessful 2019 referendum, I think it was an accomplishment to help draft and then advocate for the negotiated agreement and earn the support of a supermajority of our property owners who really put community needs first. Why am I running for office? Or as my wife would say, what are you thinking? I decided to give my best efforts for a place I love. I often muse, how did I get so lucky to live here? I would like to thank the concerned majority for their support and being instrumental in asking me to run again. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thanks to all the candidates for those delightful introductions. At this point, we will now move to the 6-minute timed portion of our presentations. The candidates will again be randomly introduced, and they will have 6 minutes to speak on the topic of their choice. The first candidate to be randomly selected is Mr. Bob Quinn. Bob, if you can join us at the podium.
All right, thank you. If you would, I'd like to just finish quickly on the previous discussion about community service. I was co-chair of the Economic Development Council in my first town, responsible for master plans and similar issues. Also the planning board in my second town of 40 years, involved in all kinds of real estate development. I was also a member of the Sea Pines Gate Traffic Committee, which is largely the reason I'm here, because I couldn't get any traction on getting them to address traffic at the Sea Pines Circle, where they were fixated on rationalizing the use of the gallery building for gate pass issuance. Something with better signage is, I don't think, quite as necessary. We are members of the Harbor Down Yacht Club. My wife Phyllis is a member of the Women's Club, and on the board of our local Twin Oaks regime. We'll stick with intangibles because I don't think we have time to get to specific issues. First, I welcome the challenge of getting to understand an issue from all perspectives. I try to get the history and to understand and respect this perspective of all of the participants. And then I try to focus on the future and not just to relive the past. I believe that there are usually 3 sides to a story and try to understand at least 2 of them. I enjoy lateral thinking. I try to keep on going until an acceptable solution is reached. I always say, well, if that wasn't work, what about this? I worry about the law of unintended consequences, something that I see in this special tax district, where we run the risk of losing local control. I prepare and reach out to affected and interested parties. I do things like, when I was on the traffic committee, I went to the town. I found out and got a copy of this circle to circle vision plan, which acknowledges the need for work to be done at the Sea Pines Circle. And they spent a lot of money up at the Colini end of the circle to circle, but nothing down here. I've come up with various potential solutions for a bypass. I went and got, because of the involvement, I got the site plan for the gallery shops, for the public shopping center, and for the welcome center, because they're all adjacent properties and could be impacted. So I believe in being prepared, getting prepared, and being prepared. All right. All right, now, one other thing I got, which I think is of use, is this. This is the Sea Pines Master Plan. And this, you'll understand, we are not just a three-constituency community. It's not just residential, resort, commercial. Look at the diversity within residential. The residential areas like club courts, no military, the beach properties between the Sea Pines Drive and the ocean, all the villas along Lighthouse Road and elsewhere. We are very much of a multi-dimensional community. It's something that we have to recognize, okay? Now, all right. How does this relate to the question of how do we develop better trust in the CSA board? First, we have to understand and recognize there are some things you can do something about and some things we can't. We are a residential resort recreational community. Okay, that's what our covenants say. And as a member of the board, we have to respect all constituencies, not just any one, which could get out if we had time to do the ASPO or CSA. All right, CSA has generally done a good job of keeping the full-time residents informed, but I think not so good a job of keeping the part-time residents like myself informed. The only way I found out that they were considering a special tax district is because I'm running for office and I listened to a board meeting where it was apparently discussed. I, as a part-time resident, received absolutely no communication or notice that such a special tax district was under consideration. So we're good in some aspects, but not so good in all of the aspects, okay? And I think that's, all right. The only thing we can say there is we have to keep on trying. We don't have much of a choice. All right. Again, traffic at the Sea Pine Circle is really the reason I'm here, because I couldn't get traction at the committee level. So I said, okay, I'll run for office, see if I get some traction at the board level. On issues, I'm against the special tax district. I really don't feel qualified to answer, as I said on the Q&A. I'm less informed on the issue of merging the two, ASPO and the CSA, than any of the other issues. I would consider a real estate transfer tax. And I believe as far as us being a mature community, we have to be the best we can be. And I think Riverstone has done its part. They have skin in the game. Okay? It's our time. It's our time to pony up and to address the infrastructure issues. So and I'll just go to saying, generally, if we resist change, the first thing that happens is we stand still until we start going backwards.
Thank
you
for your comments, Mr. Quinn. Time has elapsed. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Quinn. Our next candidate will be Dave Borghese. Dave Borghese is running for the CSA Board of Directors. Dave, if you can join us at the podium.
Well, you already have my responses to the 6 questions that the nominating committee decided that we should be presented, and those are posted on the website, so I'm going to try and stay away from repeating those. But I believe that you will gather from my responses that I'm not one to draw conclusions without investigating issues, understanding the effects of various proposals, and getting straight answers to my questions. But beyond the 6 questions, an additional critical question that should have been asked of every CSA board member is, what do you do, or what do you propose to address the maintenance and repairs of our infrastructure, given the fact that we look to be underfunded at this point in time? I'm fully convinced that the current board is searching for ways to address the funding issue. So that's the income issue. But I think we live in a new, different reality. And I think that reality struck home during Hurricane Matthew when we finally discovered that we have a number of issues in the infrastructure that need to be dealt with, whether it's stormwater, tree care, arbor care, whatever it is. And I also think with the unsuccessful referendum, we have some near-term critical issues that we need to address. And I have to say that I thank Brett and his incredible staff for the work they have done to turn over the rocks to figure out what we need to do on a go-forward basis. So what was done in the past, I think, really worked reasonably well. But I think we have to face a current financial reality and recognize that business as usual may not work as well going forward. The board, in my view, needs to set parameters and priorities for committee members to follow when developing spending budgets. There should be no more sacred cows for non-priority spending. I think we need a moratorium on initiating new projects unless there's a critical need for health, safety, or contractual issues that are at play. I believe we need to reevaluate our financial policies, those with respect to our capital infrastructure reserve, with our emergency reserve, and our investment policies. And we need to make and institute some very smart short-term changes until additional funding is found. Additionally, we have posted a 7-year forecast, and that's really out of date at this point in time because that forecast indicated what needed to be spent in the future and where the funding would be coming from that amendment to the covenants. Well, that's now out of date, invalid, and needs to be restructured. And the financial challenges we face will not be fun or enjoyable. But here's the old bromide. We must live with the hand we are dealt. And if elected, I will endeavor to be a leader on how CSA chooses to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Again, Dave Borghese is running for the CSA Board of Directors. At this time, we'd like to welcome David Ellis to the podium. David Ellis is running for the CSA and ASPO Board of Directors. David.
I'm going to set my time again. Well, I'm probably an anomaly in that I'm the fastest talking Southerner you've ever heard. I learned that when I was up north for 7 years. My wife and I first came to Sea Pines in the early 1990s and became permanent residents in 2007. We chose Sea Pines as a place where we could have a nice life, a happy life, an active life, and we could enter into the next stage of our life as retirement. But it was a stage of life. We didn't come to sit here and pass time just till we die. We wanted to live, and we wanted this to be an active place. I had intended when I retired that all of those things I told you about on service work, et cetera, that I wasn't going to get involved in them. I was going to let George do it. So I couldn't. That wasn't in my DNA. So I started looking around, and we were already invested heavily in Sea Pines Country Club. Now, the club 5 years ago, and I want to point this out to you because I think there's a lot of similarities, it was in the same kind of situation that Sea Pines at large is right now. They had an assessment that they tried, it didn't work. Members had discontent, there was contention, there were factions. People wanted to do things this way, other people wanted to do things the other way. But there was a majority that wanted something done. So I decided I couldn't sit by, and I finally got myself into as president. And I'm in my 4th and final year, as it said. But during my term, we created a positive attitude. The members approved an assessment. We've renovated the entire facility except for one part that's hopefully going to start this next year. We've created a happy environment, and we made the club a place where people wanted to come. Our events are sold out with waiting lists. Our Friday night member event has 250 to 300 people there on any given Friday. It has become the place where people who are members want to come. They're happy. And some members are so happy that they voluntarily made contributions to add things to the club over and beyond anything they did. And there's some significant contributions. So the situation we got here, I think, is somewhat similar to that situation. The names are different, situation's the same. So what is my formula? Well, first, and any time I've dealt with something like this, I try to create a vision. Because if you don't have a vision of where you're going, all you do is fix up things that immediately come up. You're reacting. So you have to have a vision to move towards. So let's talk about a vision for Sea Pines. I suspect that we all want a happy environment. We want a safe environment. We want a community that attracts others to come and buy homes here, maintain our house value. We want, when we die or we move, we're going to eventually sell that house, and we want to increase price rather than a declining price. Now, Sea Pines was created with the vision of a real estate developer to sell lots. Those lots are sold. So we got to tweak that vision. We're a community of full-time residents, part-time residents, investors who buy houses for just solely to rent and never live here, and businesses. At one time, my competitors were the other plantations on the island. But our competitors now are in Bluffton and beyond. And to make ourselves attractive, we have to take advantage of everything wonderful in our community. We're a private residential community. We have the best beaches in the area. We have a resort operation with 3 golf courses and a number of businesses. We're the only community that is almost self-sufficient within its own gates. That's very unique. And we have to be able to take this and to make this a vibrant community. We're like every other aging community, towns, anywhere else. We've got aging infrastructure that needs to be upgraded or we're going to decline. It's not an alternative. We have to do it. This is a good part of the things that I've dealt with in my past in working for the municipality I lived in and working for Sea Pines Country Club. When I hear people say that something can't be done, what I really hear is that they can't find a way to do it. I'm the eternal optimist. You don't show me a glass half full and ask whether it's half full or half empty. You give me an empty glass, and my job is to fill it up with what we want it filled up with. That's the way I work. I believe it's just a matter of finding a way. You know, I do use a country lawyer a lot of times, but a country lawyer has to have people skills. And because you live in a small town, you're going to be encountering the people you deal with when you resolve conflicts or you represent clients on one side or the other. So you have to deal with them in an honest way, an open way. You can't pull tricks. You have to earn trust. You have to learn to communicate. So the last thing I want to leave you with is the vast majority of people voted for this referendum. We'll never get everyone to agree on a plan. Forget that. People will differ on the best way. There is no perfect plan. It'll be a choice of which is the least objectionable. We have to make a decision and go forward. I believe we're at a crossroad. I believe we've got to honor the wishes of the 72% to do something. And I intend, if I'm elected to the board, to be a force to have something done. Well, I believe I'm a very active person and action-oriented. You have to understand I'm cautious. I'm the only person that you know of that wears belt and suspenders. And that's my regular wear. So you have good candidates. All of them have qualifications. The task on you and the residents here is to determine which of these good people has the particular skills to carry Sea Pines in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Again, David Ellis is running for the CSA and ASPO Board of Directors. Our next candidate to approach the podium is David Pardue. David Pardue is running for the CSA Board of Directors. David.
Wow. So how do you follow that? The good thing is that we've got some excellent candidates here. I've been impressed with everyone else's speech so far. To continue a little bit from my 3-minute deal, I've done a lot of work in higher education. I was a trustee of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for 8 years, which your term limit, and for Elon University for 14 years. But for my Carolina work in 1995, the governor of North Carolina appointed me to the trustee board for the purpose of redoing a lot of the real estate that we had, because the legislature told us that we had to grow by 6,000 students by 2010. And that was taking us from 24,000 to 30,000. We were a landlocked campus, housing around us. People ran on the board of, people ran on the town council of Chapel Hill on the platform of stopping the university growth. A lot of the professors didn't want to grow. A lot of the alumni didn't want to grow. They wanted to keep it the way it was. And I was appointed for 7 years. I was the chairman of the committee that redesigned the campus, raised the money, and got it done. 57 separate building projects. The point of all that is that obviously didn't do it single-handedly. A whole lot of people worked on it, and it cost $1.5 billion to get it done. but that was still cheaper than building a satellite campus somewhere. The point of all that is that it was all through negotiation. It was dealing with the town council. It was dealing with all the factions. And we think we've got conflicts here. You ain't seen conflicts until you start growing a university. So that's my background. In my business, I've been involved in over 450 real estate transactions in 46 states. That's constant negotiation among all the factions. You've got everybody pulling in different directions, all sorts of document negotiation. So, but at the end of the day, to get anything done, everybody's got to come together. I try to think about things as as resolving problems, not even solving problems, because if you solve problems, that's only one-sided. That just solves it for you. But if you resolve things, it resolves it for everybody and brings people together. That's the only way we could have gotten the things that Carolina done. It's the only way that any of my business projects would ever get done. I appreciate everyone saying that they can, see all sides, at least two sides of a three-sided argument, and that's certainly true. My children used to always complain whenever they had a problem with a neighbor or a friend or something. They always said, well, Dad, you can just see the other side, the other guy's side or whatever. Well, yes, because a lot of times you have to see the other guy's side. Now, with our community, there are a lot of little things around the fringes, but the big thing that we've got to come to terms with is how to pay for the future, our financial problems. They are not temporary. Anybody who says that this is only a 3-year problem and it can be fixed with $150 a piece and that sort of thing, they didn't read the same stormwater report that I read. The stormwater alone is $20 million in 20 years. We've got major problems that we've got to somehow come together. Now, it can be done through negotiation. It can be done through trying to pull people together. We have the covenant issue that we got to get 75%. We have to live with that. Maybe there's some good negotiations we can do. I know the board has tried as hard as they can, but we've got to do a little bit. We got to do a little bit more. Maybe the resort can kick in a little bit more. Maybe the commercial interest can kick in a little bit more. But here's the thing, guys. 4 years ago, Dave Borghese and I sat on a committee that was headed by Lee McCollum. It was to study ways to raise money. As a CSA committee, and we brainstormed. We tried to think of everything we could. We even talked about charging people for their dogs. I mean, really, because you had to just kind of think of everything you could and then filter down. What it comes down to is that the only thing that moves the needle is money that we put in, the residential property owners. Now, maybe there's an extra buck or two eventually that we can raise the gate fee. Maybe the resort will kick in an extra 0.25%. Maybe the resort will do this, but all those little things are just on the side. Our needs are at least another $3 million a year in revenue to support what we have to do, else we're going to tend to go downhill. Now, the residential property owners own between 92 and 95% of the properties here. All these things that people talk about the resort doing, it doesn't even move the needle. If they paid the $15 for their guest, that would raise less than $200,000 a year. If they went to an extra 0.25% on their assessment, that would be like $125,000 a year. I'm not saying it's not important, but it doesn't even move the needle when you need $3 million. The other thing is now obviously we want to spend the money wisely, and different people have different ideas about how to spend the money. I hear people saying, well, we don't need any more beautification because we're already beautiful enough. Well, yes, we're beautiful, but guess what? You could cut out the entire budget for planting new flowers and it would save you about $3 a year. So it's like, who cares? We got to look at the big picture. We got to do the stormwater. We got to do the dredging. We got to do our roads. We have to do our tree service. And that's just huge money that somehow or another we've got to come together and figure out how to do it. So if I'm elected, I'll just do my part in doing the best I can in negotiation, doing the best I can with what we spend money on, doing the best I can in trying to bring people together so that we can somehow resolve the problem and somehow get to 75%.
Thank you, David. Again, David Pardue is running for the CSA Board of Directors. At this time, I'd like to welcome Grover Todd to the podium. Grover is running for the ASPO Board of Directors. Grover.
Hi again. So running for ASPO. So my focus is narrow. It is just on you, the residential property owners. That's what I do. That's what I would be doing if I'm elected. My life experience with Sea Pines is started in the 60s and 70s, where my family vacationed here, not only in Sea Pines, but other plantations on Hilton Head Island. The feelings I had as a young person when I came is driving in with those oak trees, meeting in the middle of the road. We come into the gate, we get to our condo or our house, whatever my parents rented. We rent our bicycles. You know, some in that time, we didn't even have bike paths up on the south end. But we'd ride bikes. Tennis was a bigger deal then, actually, in American society than it is now. Played a lot of tennis, didn't play golf. The beaches were wonderful. The food was wonderful. Crazy Crab, been here since the time began, I think. That's the feelings that I had, and the whole Hilton Head feelings. As Sea Pines went forward, you know, we had bad economic times. Sea Pines went bankrupt. This can get in a place where it doesn't work for us. We got lucky through all that to get the resort owner that we have now. I'm just telling you, I've been in business, sold a business with private equity. I operated in business in 6 different states. I saw a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and I'm going to tell you what could have happened. This thing could have been sliced up in pieces to the highest bidder of whoever wanted that particular thrust. And you talk about trying to get all those people in a room and get the fact that we got this company that came in and spent $130 million is a positive to us, the residential property owners, in my mind. Most people, because I'm going to tell you, as time went on, I got older, I started playing golf. We'd come down here with groups of guys and play golf. Sea Pines got to be not one of our destinations. Harbor Town got the reputation that during the year, it was not that great a shape. Right before the tournament, they spruced it up. And so, you know, who wants to pay for big bucks for something that's not kept up throughout the year? Riverstone's not that way. Now, it's all that. It's all that 365 days a year. All 3 courses are. I'm a member of the resort. And you know what? The resort's wonderful, but these courses are in just as good shape. But they are. I mean, it's 4 great courses within our plantation. And so I'm thankful for where we are. So we moved here after I retired. We bought over on Calabogie Cay. We built a house on the water. Feel very fortunate to live there. I'm a member of the association over there. And we've really, really much enjoyed it. But here's, in my heart, this is kind of where I think we are now. Those feelings that I had and the feelings that you probably had when you bought here, we got the responsibility to keep that going. Because this is a new day. And we got to make good decisions going forward to keep the same thing going that I experienced. Because we got a new generation coming behind you guys, coming behind me. And we need to do it. What do we want in Sea Pines? I think we want quality. When I come in that gate, nothing pleases me more than to see an irrigated area of grass alongside the road, irrigated flowers, irrigated shrubs, healthy, pine straw multiple times a year. Nothing, that's what I want. I don't care to have a Myrtle Beach sand on the side of the road. You know, I could have went there. I could have went to Kiowa, but there's nobody in Kiowa. The houses are great, but there's nobody there. They pride themselves on, we don't allow denim in our, you know what? I don't even have a jacket on today. I'm over that, you know, I'm over it. But that's what I want is quality. I want neighborly. I want to look out with you guys and feel like you're my friends. I don't want to feel like that what I said today gets put on social media in a different way than I meant it. I want friends here. I want people who are supportive. I've only got 1 minute left. Supportive, unified. That's what I want. That was my vision for here. What I've seen under the cover is a lot of disunity, and that's unfortunate. To make it quick, I think the sources of the disunity is number one. I think, and it would be better if in our committees that we publish what the committees is doing so that everybody knows. What I've seen is that committees doing really good work. I've been on the governance committee. I've been on the gate reconfiguration committee. Quality people making sound. Nobody's in it for themselves. They're doing the best thing they can do. But then once their work is published, then the community goes divisive. And this social media stuff, when we're trying to settle a debate on social media, how many debates have been settled on social media? All it is you get your idea and your idea.
Thank you, Grover, for your comments. Time has elapsed. As a reminder, Grover Trott is running for the ASPO Board of Directors. At this time, I'd like to welcome Diedrich Avocott to the podium. Diedrich is running for the CSA Board of Directors. Diedrich.
Thank you, Amanda. One thing I forgot to mention to you, that is, I am originally from the Netherlands, and I became a US citizen last year. But with that, Dutch people tend to be quite direct and practical. And so I would like to talk to you really about how I would like to push the refresh button on Sea Pines. It is my observation that we are in a gridlock, and with polarization today, with the Facebooks and the like, people tend to dig in behind issues, and there's no scrutiny on any viable long-range vision. And as a result, very little gets done. And this actually is the main reason that I'm running, to enable us to unlock the situation and move forward and let Sea Pines again be the leader in community living. Now, a lot has been accomplished over the past years. We are quite fortunate to have an engaged group of homeowners, a resort owner who has turned a dated business into a state-of-the-art destination, and commercial entities, of which some have found their niche and others need some reinvention. So how do we move forward? And how can we be practical in moving forward? And my big theme is really runs through Sea Pines as a whole, and that is openness. And I believe that we function better by listening and providing access to how things are managed by CSA, engage everyone in the allocation of resources, and to work of a platform that nurtures interaction, starting with boards and committees being receptive to diversity. And I have 5 points. So here's number 2. Governance has to run on certain fundamentals. We have stakeholder groups that have inherent objectives and do often not run on parallel with one another. This is a natural course. Nothing you can change about that. And even though we all want a flourishing Sea Pines, compromise is required to achieve the overall goal. And that implies that there is a certain autonomy needed with ASPO and CSA. We cannot merge, commingle board memberships between these two. The independence provides the checks and balances and builds trust. ASPO should be enabled to communicate with its members and record and control the contact details of its members. Now, I'm fully aware that the covenants are the backbone of our community and do protect our property values. But we need to respect and operate within those boundaries. I do think, however, that the covenants need to be brought into the 21st century, which is long overdue. Number 3, openness, in my mind, also means access for all board meetings and committee meetings. And with today's technologies, this can be done through webinar, WebEx platforms. and in addition to posting minutes of meetings on the CSA website. Secondly, the pre-selection of candidates for boards should be abolished, and should be the grooming of candidates for inclusion on boards and committees. Most of our homeowners move here with a very rich professional background and would be fantastic candidates to sit on any committee. Number 4, and this is an important one, I believe, and I know that a lot of work has been done and over the years, but openness, in my mind, also means disclosure of financial information. So my proposal would be to appoint a CFO or financial manager so that we can instill a financial discipline, financial planning, financial reporting and control over expenditures. And with a new CFO has the added benefit that we can accelerate our new accounting system and provide a better tool for management of our finances. Financial management on expenditures and checks on whether we spend the funds at the right time and in the right place is a normal and sound practice for any community. Lastly, we need to apply Robert's Rules of Order. The town of Hilton that does it, we should do it too. No more executive sessions unless it involves contracts or employment contracts and vendors, etc. So what should we do? Stormwater drainage, a lot has been talked about that. Deferred maintenance, it should be done. It's a win-win for everybody. Let's not go the route of the special tax district. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. Now, here's my roadmap for our community. I would like to invite you to consider a different approach to our community and its future. It is my belief that the only way to improve our community and change it for the better is by moving pieces on the Sea Pines chessboard and repurposing some of the major components. The resort needs to find a way to have its 150 rooms and be a top-notch destination. Homeowners want to be an equal partner. CSA is spread all over Sea Pines, as is the resort, and commercial entities need to rethink on becoming a viable destination. There are a lot of moving parts to this, and it requires a new vision to stay in the game.
Thank you, Diedrich. And as a reminder, Diedrich Avocado is running for the CSA Board of Directors. At this time, we'd like to welcome Dana Gazzo to the stage, or to the podium. Dana is running for the ASPO Board of Directors. Dana.
Well, after listening to my biography and to all these other gentlemen, I'm sure many of you are asking, why? I am not your typical ASPO board candidate. I have no banking expertise. I never ran a multi-million-dollar firm or sat on a corporate board. As a matter of fact, until 2 years ago, serving on the POA board would have never entered my mind. I don't even look like any of the other folks up here. But then I found myself sitting across the street from one of the most egregious nuisance properties in Sea Pines, 40 San Fiddler Road. Nicknamed the Rat House, this bank-owned property even appeared on the front page of the Island Packet as reflective of problem properties within Sea Pines. Not only was this property unsightly, dilapidated, and a home for pests, it posed a real danger to the inquisitive children that live on my street. And that fact really haunted me. I felt I had to do something. So although I had no experience in government or real estate law, my research skills kicked in and I began sniffing out clues, support, and advice from everyone I met. Fortunately for me, the ASPO board asked Dick Matthews to set up a task force to investigate the problem, and residents Alex Cruden and Peter Vero joined, and we began digging in. We researched the covenants, legal documents, and property histories. We interviewed Sea Pines residents and CSA staff. We solicited help from the town building code enforcement staff, the town council, the town manager, the mayor, and even the Beaufort County Master in Equity. Ultimately, Through our efforts and with community support, 40 Sandfiddler Road was sold at auction, triggering its full renovation by a responsible new owner. But more importantly, our work highlighted the need for Sea Pines to aggressively and intentionally address problem properties that sporadically blight our aging community. Residential properties are threatened by insidious decay, aggravated by economic downswings, inclement weather, and some negligent owners. Our task force outlined a path forward to address this growing concern, and as a result, the joint ASPO-CSA Land Use Management Committee was formed, and a full-time land use monitor position was created to report to the committee. The mission of this committee and the land use monitor is to uphold our property standards as outlined in the covenants. When signs of residential property neglect and or decay become evident, we specify remediation action to the owners, and in extreme cases, we recommend to the CSA and ASPO boards that they take legal action against recalcitrant owners. This may sound like a little bit like Big Brother to some of you, and I'm sure that some fear the greater costs these steps incur, but I can assure you that no one on our committee wants to micromanage your home, and we are quite aware of the need to be cost conscious. However, I'm sure you will all agree that proper upkeep of our neighborhoods will maximize the attractiveness and the value of Sea Pines residential properties to potential new buyers. Preservation of residential properties should be one of the highest priorities for a property owners association. As long as 40 Sandfiddler Road remained a rat house, nearby properties sat on the real estate market getting no or low purchase offers. Parents worried about sending their children out to play. Now, with 40 Sandfiddler beautifully renovated, other properties on our street are also being renovated, and homes placed on the real estate market are quickly purchased for their maximum worth. More families with school-aged children are even moving in. The work of the Land Use Management Committee and the Land Use Monitor really matters. As an ASPO board director, I hope to serve as the co-chair of this committee, and I encourage people to participate, to be part of this very energetic and motivated group of committee volunteers. You may be asking now about how I'm going to answer and address all these other issues that some of the other folks up here have talked about. There's not time today to discuss that. I am certainly interested in all of those other issues, and I have posted some of my answers on the website. I invite you to read those. I also invite anyone to contact me directly so that I can learn from you. I have no other agenda than to do what is best for the residential property owners of Sea Pines. And my methodology, as I'm sure you've figured out by now as a researcher, includes first researching an issue, followed by exploring creative solutions through ongoing discussion and collaboration. I have the patience to work until problems are solved and solutions are implemented. And I understand that solution implementation must include public education, full disclosure, and complete transparency to win community trust and support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. All right. Thank you so much for all of your presentations. At this point, I'd like to take a round of applause for all those candidates that have spoken. So if you'll join me. Thank you so much to the candidates. A quick housekeeping items. Don't know if you guys saw us over there, but staff has been having a few technical issues with the video. A couple of times video may have cut out, it seems like, from what we can defer. We do have audio throughout, but a couple of different times where video may not be present. So our deepest apologies. What we will do is our best to make sure we produce a video that is as efficient as possible. Again, we are limited in our technology capacity. It's just Stephen and myself over there doing the best that we can. So my apologies. When that video does get rendered, we'll get it out as soon as possible for you. So behind me, you'll see the screen related to election process. I'd like to cover that information really quickly for you. The CSA and ASPO ballots will be mailed out to property owners on November 1st, 2019. The CSA ballots will be mailed to each property owner that is a Class A member in good standing, which is a participating property owner. You will receive one ballot for CSA for each property you own. So if you own multiple properties, if you own 4, you'll get 4 separate ballots. That's for CSA. For ASPO, ASPO is a voluntary membership organization, so you do have to be a member of ASPO to vote in their upcoming election, which will be mailed out on the November 1st date as well. So do be cognizant that if you may own 4 properties in Sea Pines, you may only get 1 ASPO ballot if you are in fact a ASPO member. Elliott Davis, our CPA, validates the election ballots, and they are located in Charleston, South Carolina. You can see that next bullet point down. That's their mailing address. All this information will be included in your mailing package, so don't feel like you have to write it down. But Elliott Davis is our independent CPA auditor. That's who you send your ballots back to, located in Charleston, South Carolina. And again, if elected, the CSA candidates will serve a 3-year term beginning on January 1st, 2020. Stephen, if you can progress the slides for me. You can see I did mention we are experiencing some technical difficulties, didn't I? There you go. Thank you so much, Stephen. So again, like I mentioned, your ballots will be mailed out on November 1st. The Meet the Candidates brochure will be included in your ballot mailing package. That has information on each of these candidates in front of you. It includes their biography and also their intent to serve. Many of them reference their question and answers that they work diligently to provide. Those are posted separately. They are part of their candidate profiles, which can be found on our website at seapinesliving.com/CSA candidates for your CSA candidates, and then seapinesliving.com/ASPO candidates for your specific ASPO candidates. Please be aware that those URLs are case sensitive. Stephen, next slide. Perfect, thank you. So we ask you to vote. It's coming up soon. Please cast your ballot. Like I mentioned, they'll be mailed out on November 1st. We do ask that you allow about 3 to 4 business days for them to arrive in your mailboxes if you are out of state, or even if you are international, since we do have some of those members or property owners that may be out of country even, just to allow that processing to arrive to you, and then make sure you postmark them by December 1st and send them to Elliott Davis. At this point, we certainly thank everybody for attendance today, both those in person and on the webinar, and we appreciate your attendance. That concludes the meeting. Thank you again. Have a great day.